All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm John McMurray, aka Meats by Mack. I am local to Bethel here. I've lived here for 7, 8 years, I think it is. Um, but oddly enough, as much as you see up on the table, everything that you saw on the video as you walked in, this is all taking place within the past 6 years. Prior to COVID, barbecue to me was hot dogs and hamburgers, the occasional steak, maybe a burnt chicken on the gas grill. But hold on, just there, just blended in with the gloves. And then COVID hit. We couldn't go to restaurants. We couldn't do anything. And then my wife and I had the conversation. Something popped up on QVC. It was a Traeger. It was a pellet smoker. She goes, "You should get it. You just get it." So we bought the Traeger and instantly started making food on the Traeger. And I mean like chicken wings, whole chickens. And then once I started making the whole chickens, I had friends that asked me to cook whole chickens for their parties. And I just started to fall more and more in love with barbecue. And, I guess I started to get snobby. I don't like to go to barbecue restaurants because it's not mine. But what I'm trying to say is barbecue is what you make of it. Okay. It's very easy to overthink it. It's very easy to overcomplicate things and frustrate yourself. So what I'm going to try to do today is give you some tips and tricks that will ease your mind, maybe open up your mind to trying some new stuff and maybe learning a couple of new things. So what you learned today, I got some gear up here. I'll go through some of the gear that are pretty necessary to have as you're grilling. Help protect yourself, keep yourselves clean, and just cook the best food possible. We're going to talk about heat, what types of heat you're going to use, smoke, how you use smoke if you're going to use it, meat, how to choose your meat, safety, your thermometers, your gloves. A lot of people talk about should you wash your chicken. The problem with washing your chicken, okay, is you go to wash a chicken in the sink, water hits that chicken, it's going all over your sink now. You're not even realizing it. So you're really contaminating more than you're doing. Take a paper towel. If it's got slime on it, as long as it smells good, just pat it dry and then season it however you like to season it. And then your first cook. Make your first cook something easy. Don't try to do a brisket the first day you have your brand new smoker. You're going to get so frustrated. You're going to want to sell that smoker to be on Facebook Marketplace, and I'll probably wind up buying it from you. Just don't tell her. So controlled heat, time, and smoke is low and slow. So everybody loves to talk about brisket. Everybody wants to have a brisket. That's like the top barbecue food to have. To me, I'm not a big, huge brisket fan. I'll eat it, but it's not something that I desire at all times. I've cooked it a few times. It's probably one of the hardest meats to cook. You're doing a low and slow brisket, which is for those of you who don't know what a brisket is, it's a huge chunk of meat, comes from here on the cow. It's got a point and a flat. So when you're looking at a brisket and you're going to go to a store and buy a brisket, you're going to want to make sure that when you're buying a brisket, your flat is pretty thick in comparison to your point. The point's where all the fat is and the really good tender meat. But when you're trying to cook a brisket, it's like, depending on the size and how long what temperature you're going to cook it at, you're looking at like 15, 16, 17 hours to cook a brisket. So it takes a lot of patience. And depending on what style of cooker you're using, if you're going to use an offset smoker, you're going to have to man that fire for the entire length of that cook to make sure your temperature stays steady. My Traeger that I have at home, I love it because I can set it and forget it. The pulled pork that we'll be having later on this afternoon or this evening, I threw on at 2 o'clock this morning. Okay, set an alarm, woke myself up at 2, turned the Traeger on, threw it on, went back to sleep until my alarm went off at 6 a.m. so I get ready for work, and I was able to monitor my temperatures the whole time. Didn't have to slave over it. So that's why I like the convenience of my Traeger pellet grill. Anyway, go back to low and slow. It's all about maintaining your heat source, knowing what heat to use, what types of wood to use. You can't just go out in your backyard, chop down a tree and think you're going to use it. You got to make sure you're using extremely dry wood. You don't want to use pines, anything like that. You want to use oaks, hickory. Thank you. Something that's going to give your food a really nice hint of flavor. And when you're doing anything with smoke, okay, everybody likes, oh, look at that. There's a lot of smoke coming out of that smoker. There must be some good food in there. Chances are it's going to be horrible food. It's going to be very, very acidic. When you're cooking on a smoker, you want to either see no smoke whatsoever or just very thin blue smoke. Anything dark, white, heavy is not good for your foods. All right, let's get into some of the tools. So a cooker with a lid. If you're going to do smoking or anything long term, you're going to want something with a lid. So we have, like I have at home, I have a big green egg. It's a big, you guys have probably seen it before. It's a big, huge green, shiny egg. Looks like an egg. That's why they call it a big green egg. But you have offset smokers. You see them on trailers. You see them in people's backyard with big smokestacks. Kamado Joe makes another egg style. It's called the Kamado style grill. There's a red. You go to like BJ's or Costco. Sometimes they have them on display there. The other key to doing your cooking is making sure that you are cooking to temperature and not time. Okay, all the time you'll see on Facebook groups, you'll see in magazines, you know, you're going to want to cook your chicken for 45 minutes or you're going to want to cook your brisket for 17 hours. Okay, that's just a guideline. Okay, that's a basis to what you can expect to get out of how long you're going to cook for. What you want to make sure of is that you're using a thermometer to check the internal temperature of whatever it is that you are cooking. In the back of the room, on the table as you walked in and as you walk out, I did create a little cheat sheet for everybody to take home with yourselves. On the left-hand side is your temperatures for cooking on a griddle or flat top grill. So you'll see on the left-hand side, for those of you who don't have it, I will get you one in a few. But it says like the griddle temperature should be 300 to 325. And for anyone who's ever looked at a griddle, there's nothing on that griddle that will tell you what the temperature is. The cool thing is, there's a lot of these out there. These are called an infrared thermometer. I can point it anywhere. See the little red dot? And it'll tell me the temperatures. This screen here is 72 degrees. My leg is 85 degrees. So when you're cooking on a griddle, point it at the surface and it'll tell you what temperature your griddle is at.
You get that.
You can get this anywhere. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart. Anywhere that sells barbecue products will have an infrared thermometer just like this. Thank you. And same thing with this one here. This is a probe thermometer. You can buy these anywhere that you find barbecue products. Yep, exactly. There are some that are better than others depending on how often you're going to use it or what you're really trying to dial in. Like this one here takes about 3 to 5 seconds to give me an accurate temperature of what I'm cooking. There's another brand on the market called ThermoPro, and theirs is within like 0.1 seconds. As soon as you touch the meat, it'll give you the temperature reading.
Oh, right.
So this one here was $25. This is from a company called ThermoPro. The ThermoPro, which is why this company just changed their name. The ThermoPro are about $100. Yeah, but you're getting much better accurate readings, much faster readings. Because one of the things you want to make sure of when you are cooking something, okay, rule of thumb is if you're looking, you're not cooking. Okay, when we talk about having a cooker with a lid, anytime you open that lid on your cooker, heat is now escaping from that grill. Okay, whether it be the smoker, your barbecue grill, your gas grill, as soon as you open that lid up and you're trying to maintain a temperature, you're going to be losing heat. So the longer you have your arm in there checking your meat temperatures, more heat's going to come out. You close that lid, now that grill has to get back up to temperature. And when we talk about using a stick burner is a wood-fired grill. Stick burner is a slang term, sorry. It may take you a little bit longer to regain that temperature and get it level set. We talk about fuel and airflow control. So your different types of grills require different types of fuel. You have charcoal, wood, pellets, or gas. There are some electric smokers out on the market. But again, an electric smoker will still require some sort of wood to create the smoke for you. You can use wood pellets. Does anybody here have a Traeger? Thanks. That's my daughter. I talked a little bit about it before. Traeger grill is what they call a pellet smoker. Okay, what they do is they take real wood, depending on the brand you buy, and they crush it up into little particles and they form it into little pellets. Okay, and those pellets go inside your smoker, they call the hopper, and it feeds into a fuel pot, and that's where you get your heat and your smoke from. The pellets are fairly inexpensive. You can buy a 40-pound bag for $20 at Walmart, or you can buy a 25-pound bag off of some companies out there that'll charge you an arm and a leg for them. But it's all up to you what you want to use, what kind of flavor you're trying to get. There's all different types of flavors: oak, hickory, cherry, apple, depending on what type of food you want to cook. Charcoals. So there's different types of charcoals, believe it or not. There's briquettes, which are the squares that everybody's probably used for their entire life on their regular, Weber grills. Just throw them in there, light it up. You're going to cook some hot dogs and hamburgers real quick. That's what you're going to use, little briquettes. Those little briquettes are very hot, but they burn out very quick. So you'll notice, maybe you might get an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours out of your briquettes, depending on how you control your temperature. But they're going to turn to ash very quickly, and you're going to have to keep reloading. So they also make what's called lump charcoal. Now, lump charcoal looks like pieces of wood that came out of somebody's house fire. Because that's all it is. It's wood that has been cut up, chopped up, and burned to become charcoal. So that when you go to put it in your grill, you light it up, and depending on how you control your temperature, I've used charcoal for 27 hours off of one pot of charcoal, and I've also used charcoal for 3 hours and burned it all out. All depending on how you're going to use it. Yeah.
Does that feel like charcoal floor? I know so many charcoal purveyors
Okay.
broken up hardwood.
It's definitely possible, because that's all it is. It's hardwood that's burned in charcoal.
Okay.
And charred, burned and charred. So I've never heard of it used for flooring, though. That's pretty interesting.
Well, without.
Yeah, no, obviously, yes. Yeah. Actually, I have seen in some cheap brands of charcoal, I have seen wood flooring in bags. So.
Hey,
Yes. And then you have your gas grills. You have your Webers, your charbroils, your flat top cookers are all going to be using gas to fuel your fires. Those are sometimes the hardest to maintain. The flat top griddles all have knobs on them: high, low, medium. But depending on the grill, depending on how close the flames are to the actual metal surface, is going to be very dependent on how low or how high you can get that surface. So they can be very hard to maintain. So you may not do a lot of long cooks in a Weber gas fire grill, propane grill. But you can. The cool thing about a Weber grill or any propane grill is you can do zone cooking. If you wanted to do a long cook, you can turn one of the sides of the grill off, put your meat over here, turn the other side on, and put maybe some wood chips in there. You can do a nice long cook that way. And the smoke will circulate through. Safe handling tools. This is where it becomes very important, and I will speak from experience, all the burns that I've had on my hands. The first day I had my Big Green Egg, I had a brand new pair of Crocs on, and I had a charcoal chimney, lit the charcoal chimney up, and I picked it up and I went to go pour it in. And next thing you know, my foot's burning. I dropped one of the embers on the ground and went right through my brand new Crocs, but I guess that's what I get for wearing Crocs, right? So anytime you're handling any hot surfaces with charcoal, you're trying to pull something out of the grill, they do make hot gloves. This allows you to handle anything at a high temperature without burning your hands. You're obviously not going to grab it and hold it for 15, 20 minutes, because eventually that heat will get to you. These are also hot gloves. These I use all the time. I actually used these tonight when I pulled the pork because it was very hot. I just put these on my hands, and then I put the rubber gloves over these, and now I have safe handling and protection from the heat. You can buy a 10-pack of these on Amazon. for like $5-6. You can wash them, they last a lifetime. And if they don't last, throw them out, get a new pair. Gloves. Listen, you're cooking for yourself, by all means, touch your meat, do what you got to do. I'm a germaphobe. I paid for a certification so that I can cook for people. So I've gone through all the safe handling classes. I always wear gloves, no matter who I'm cooking for. I cook for myself, I'm going to put gloves on. I just feel safer. I don't have to worry about washing my hands 14 times in a row after handling something. You know, I can take these on, take these off, put as many pairs as I want. I go through boxes of gloves like they're free. Sometimes they are from work. Yeah, you know, a rule of thumb, if you're cooking for somebody, you should be having some sort of protection. The last thing you want to do is get somebody sick by contaminating them in any way possible. But again, to each their own. Now, I was trained that way. I paid for my certification. I've learned the ins and outs of what can be contaminated, how it can't be contaminated. I just take every precaution I can possible. Excuse me. Any questions so far? Before I move on to the next slide. Cool. There you go. Oh. So I went over the cutting board, the heat gloves, drip pans, cutting boards. There's a really cool new thing out that I go through more than I go through gloves, or maybe about the same. They're disposable cutting boards. They're big cardboard, 18 by 24 cardboard pieces of paper, basically. Put it on top of my stovetop or my kitchen counter. I can use it, and then as soon as I'm done, I can throw it right out. What happens is when you're handling any sort of raw meat, especially raw chicken, and you're using a cutting board you're going to keep using over and over again, as your knife goes through your meat and goes into your cutting board, that cutting board has now been contaminated. And the chances of you 100% getting that cutting board back to sanitary state is very hard, especially with the hardwood cutting boards, because you don't always want to scrub them. You don't always want to use any harsh soaps on them. You really want to maintain them. So I find the disposable cutting boards to be my second best tool in the kitchen, because I can just throw it out as soon as it's done and just pull a new one out.
Make it shred up or cut up?
No, I use the Big Green Egg ones. Hardcore Carnivore has a line of them as well. They can all be found on Amazon. The Big Green Egg ones can be found at Ace or any Big Green Egg dealer, and they are amazing. Like I've done 7 pork butts on one, no shredding whatsoever. They're very, very durable, very durable. And they also fold up. You can fold them up and it captures all the juices and everything like that. So you don't have to worry about the juices running off, especially when you're doing 7 pork butts or, steaks. Yes. Yep. So for the Big Green Egg ones, it's $25 for 20. Online, the Hardcore Carnivore are a lot more expensive, but they're much more harder to find. They were cheaper at one point. Theirs are like $39 for 20.
I don't mention that. I watched shows and the videos and they're saying, well, it's cool plastic.
Yeah.
It's cool with plastic. Use the wooden, use this, use that. They don't really say much about the.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I will use my hardwood cutting boards at the end of a cook. It looks nice for presentation. I make a lot of videos for TikTok and Instagram, and I like to use them for presentation. But when it comes to prep, I don't mess around with any of my regular good stuff. I will always use something I can throw right out. So, and then clean towels. So making sure that you're utilizing, paper towels that are clean. If you're going to be handling food, have a separate roll of paper towels that's not your everyday roll. Keep it off to the side that you can touch, and then you can unwrap and throw that out in the garbage when you're done. But the other cool thing is, I don't know if anybody's found or if you've tried them. These are called crocodile cloth. Okay, you can find these at Home Depot and Lowe's. They are awesome. And listen, I'm not sponsored by anybody here. I'm not getting paid for any of these product spots. This is just stuff that I use every single day I cook. You have one side that's rough, the other side that's smooth. So that's good for rubbing down surfaces. It will sanitize your cooking areas or anything that you're cleaning. And they're fairly cheap. I think this was $16, and there's 80 in here. Yeah, there's 80 wipes in here. And they do last, and they work extremely well. They also just came out with an actual sanitizer. It's a much thinner package that kills. It's almost like a Lysol wipe. It's much thicker grade, so it's not going to disintegrate in your hands. And then, yeah, that's it on the keeping clean stuff. So we talked about the different styles of cookers. We talked about, the 2-zone for your gas grills. How many people in here have a propane gas grill? Vast majority of everybody here. Has anybody tried to utilize their gas grill in the 2-zone setup? Cool. Try it sometime. The best way to do a steak is what they call a reverse sear steak. Okay. So instead of taking your steak and throwing it right on the hot coals or right on the hot grill, put it off to the side. So if you're going to do it on a Weber or on a propane grill, keep one side off, one side on. Your steak over here. What'll happen is that steak takes on the heat slowly. Okay. You want to, depending on how you like to keep your eat, depending on how you like to eat your steak. If you like your steak well done, please leave. No, I'm just kidding. Depending on how you like to eat your steak, I like my steak to have pink in it. I like it nice and soft and juicy. So I will smoke my steak until it's about a 115, 120 internal, 115 to 120 degrees internal. Again, utilizing my thermometer to check the temperature. And once I get it to that temperature, depending on what I'm cooking on, I will put that steak to the side and rest it for a couple minutes as I get my other side of the grill or my coals up to temperature where I want them, screaming hot. And then I will throw the steak on for a minute, maybe 2 minutes on each side. So that I get that nice sear on the steak, still not getting that steak anywhere above 125 to 130 degrees internal. But that's how I like my steak. And again, on this sheet here, I did include the beef. So you have your rare at 120, 125, medium rare 130 to 135, medium 140, 145, and your well done steaks shouldn't even be on here.
Put it on the dish, this is the way I like it. The thing looks like it's rolling still.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a little bit of pink inside, but not like.
So you brought more of like a medium.
Yeah.
Medium rare then. The way steak, in order for steak to be juicy and tender, you don't want to really go too much past medium. Once you start going past medium, that's when it gets really the same color all the way around, like a dark color. That's when it gets very tough to cut, depending on the style, the cut of meat you're using, and very chewy. You sit there finding yourself chewing a steak for a few minutes longer than you should be. Cook it a little less. Yeah, so that's a great point, Steve. Thank you. Anytime you're cooking a beef, like a red meat, or even chicken, you want to let that piece of meat rest. You never want to just take it directly off the grill and cut into it and serve it. How many times, who in here has cut a piece of steak after cooking it and it just looks like it's bleeding everywhere? All the juices run out, right? What's happening is that steak didn't have time to rest. Those juices didn't have time to reintroduce themselves into the meat itself. You let that steak rest for about 5-10 minutes or so, tent it with some tin foil so it doesn't lose all of its heat. But when you go to cut into that steak, it's going to have some juices come out. But for the most part, they're going to stay inside that steak, and you're going to bite into that thing and you're going to go, wow, I should have tried this earlier. That's when you're going to get that nice juicy bite of steak. So thank you.
Recommend letting your steak rest before at a room temperature or cold?
To me, there's no benefit to it. There's a lot of studies that say, yes, it's good. Yes, it's not. The colder the steak, the more smoke it's going to take on because it takes more time to get up to temperature. But depending on how you're going to cook it, if you're going to just do a hot and fast steak, get it up to room temperature. But I don't let my meat sit out for any length of time. I'm not a big meat guy that sits it out. Too much time for contamination. Yes.
No, given my son's relationship, steak juice is different from steak blood.
Yes.
I know, but how do you convince someone who can't differentiate?
So blood comes from veins.
Yeah.
Okay, when you have a piece of steak, there's no veins in that steak. There might be some gristle, some fat, some muscle, but there's never any veins. So that's how you know that there's no blood in that steak. Any other questions before I move on? Perfect. So we talked about smoke, and flavor should be clean, not heavy. So like I said, thin blue smoke is what you want to look for when you're smoking anything. You don't want that big cloud of smoke, because that's just, it's going to taste very acidic. Start with mild woods. When you're cooking pork or chicken, a fruit wood is really awesome. I like to, when I do my pulled pork, I like to use apple wood. It's very soft, very subtle, but it still gives you a nice smoke flavor, just not as overpowering like an oak can be, or a hickory. And then airflow. It's all about, when you talk about maintaining your temperatures, it's all about, you want to make sure you have good airflow. If you have too much air, it's going to burn a lot faster. You have it too low, you're almost choking it out. And that's when you're going to start to get some thick white smoke. Yes. Oh, sorry, sir.
No, I was always the cook, with our family being in Ditto Beach and Massachusetts, and I would start at 9 o'clock with the ribs. And it would take 8 hours.
Yeah.
And is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, small.
when you're doing low and slow, you're putting time and effort into whatever it is that you're cooking. So like I did ribs on, I forget what day I did ribs. I think it was Saturday or Sunday. I had them on my big green egg. I had them at 220, 225 degrees. And they took about 6 hours.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Again,
Okay.
yeah, it all depends on the size of your meat, or whatever it is that you're cooking in your grill.
Baby back ribs.
Yeah, so their baby back ribs may cook faster than say a St. Louis style rib, because a St. Louis style rib has a much thicker, more of a loin on top of the rib. So again,
They even technically ribs.
yeah, it's because they still have the rib bones. You still have the rib bones. Is just the top of the ribs. It might have a little bit of the loin, and depending on what butcher cut them, will determine how much loin is on there.
Okay.
Sorry,
No, you're good. What's your name, by the way?
Mark.
Mark. Nice to meet you, Mark. Thanks for asking questions. I appreciate the interactions. So we talk about cuts of meat. Okay. You just bought a brand new grill, and you're like, oh, I'm excited. I want to cook something really awesome tonight. The best thing to cook on a brand new grill is something that's going to splatter. Okay. Because what's going to happen is that splatter is going to go all over the grill, and it's going to nicely coat your grill. Okay. So you don't have to worry about the heat's going to kill anything that is bacteria. So if you're doing a chicken, you don't have to worry about that chicken, bacteria all over your grill, because the heat's going to kill it anyway. But it's going to put a nice coating on the inside of your grill and make that grill last a long time. Start with something simple. Something simple. Chicken thighs. Very, very easy to do. Not everybody's a chicken thigh fan, but it's something really good to learn on a brand new grill. Of course, your hot dogs, your hamburgers, but are you challenging yourself at that point? Anybody can cook a hot dog and a hamburger. Pork ribs, we just talked about, Mark and I talked about some pork ribs. Pork shoulder is what I have in the back. That's pulled pork, also known as Boston butt or picnic shoulder. And then brisket. Brisket is by far the hardest meat to cook. Ask any barbecue chef, any professional barbecue chef, what has been the one thing that has challenged them their entire careers. It will be brisket. Now, there will be some guys out there that will tell you brisket's a breeze. Brisket's a breeze. Okay. They may have them all over their Instagram pages, but I guarantee you, for every one post they have of a good brisket, there's 7 back there that they killed. I know from experience. Any questions on meats?
Yeah, how do you make the chicken skin not like rubbery tape? I get a little crisp on that.
So for the crispy skin can be challenging. Okay, especially when you're doing chicken wings. and you want to do it low and slow, you want the smoke flavor. You're gonna want to smoke them low and slow, maybe a quarter of the cook, because after a while, yeah, exactly. After a while, your meat's gonna stop taking on smoke at some point during your cook. So with chicken, if you want crispy skin on your chicken, you cook it low and slow for a little bit, give it a nice kiss of smoke, and then you're gonna want to jack the heat up on that. So maybe start it at 225, 250 for, maybe a half an hour on your wings, and then jack it up to 350, 375. That'll help crispin up your wings. Another cool trick that I try to use is I use oil as a binder. Then we'll get into binders in a second. Not everybody's a fan of binders, but I know that when I do chicken, I like to rub the outside of the skin with either a duck fat or an olive oil, and then I'll use my seasoning on top of that. What happens is that helps get those wings nice and crispy at a higher heat. Yeah.
I got a rucksack. Oh. Well, and I've been through it twice. 240. I get a lot of weight smoke. It seems like it comes in waves. Is it real?
Yeah, so it's a pellet grill?
Yeah.
Yeah, so pellet grills are synonymous for that. The white smoke from a pellet grill isn't as bad as white smoke from, say, an offset. But if you have a ton of white smoke constantly, that could be a problem. It could be the fire pot, could be a problem. The burner could be an issue. The thermometer, the thermostat inside the grill could be off, causing the temperature to drop way too far down. And then when it's reheating, it's really basically starting itself up. If you ever started up a pellet smoker, you're going to get a ton of white smoke out of a pellet grill at that first initial. I know, like with my Traeger, I have it at 225. It's going to go through that cycle where it's going to give me some white smoke, but it's not the thick, heavy smoke. Then it'll last as long as you're not opening the lid too much. You should be all right. But if it's doing it too much, a lot of these internal thermostats and thermometers on the grills can be cleaned. Let's take like either a Brillo pad or some tin foil and just not going to say the word I was going to say, but just rub it up and down. Anyway. Yes,
I'm sorry.
you're good, Mark. You're good, bro.
No, if 225 is ideal, and that's what I was always taught. So if I start, because my brother and I, we have a place on the beach, so I would start at 9:30 and thinking by 5:30,
Yeah.
it'll be done. And is that
It's not. So the worst thing you can ever do is try to have a piece of meat or anything done at a particular time.
okay?
Because it's never going to go the way you want it to go, no matter how many times you cook something. I started my pork butt at 2:00 this morning, thinking it would be done midday, ready to put rest and then and pull it. It wasn't. It didn't finish cooking until about 4:00 or 3:00. Then I had to rest it for half an hour, then pull it, which is a lot less than I wanted to rest it, but still came out great. Meat is finicky. You're going to cook something. If you're going to do something low and slow, like a brisket or ribs or a pork butt, you're going to find what's called the stall.
Sure.
Your meat is going to stop cooking. What's going to look like it's stopping to cook. But what's happening is that internal of that meat is now trying to start to cook itself just as fast as the outside is cooked. So it's going to stall for a little bit. And what happens? A lot of people decide, oh man, it's stalled. I'm running out of time. I got people coming over in 5 hours. I'm not going to be ready. They jack the heat up. And what happens? They wind up ruining the meat because now you're cooking it way too fast and the fat's not breaking down. The meat's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. I rolled mine at 225 for, I want to say 10 hours today. And the bark came out amazing. But it's you have to over plan for time. If you're gonna do a long cook, you got people coming over at 4:00 the next day, start it the night before. You can rest your brisket up to half as long as the time it took to cook. So if you cook a brisket for 24 hours, you can rest that brisket up to 12 hours, as long as you're doing it safely. The one thing you don't want to do is let that piece of meat get below 145 degrees. Now you're in the danger zone of getting sick.
Getting sick or what?
Bacteria.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
Interesting fact, burgers.
Interesting.
Who likes their burgers pink? Okay. It might ruin your day. Beef is the worst meat to have undercooked. Ground beef. Ground beef is the only red meat that's actually touched air. So when they're grinding that grinding process, it's actually touching the open air. So that's the easiest meat to get sick from is ground beef. 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or if you say you want it medium, they're going to say, "Are you sure you want it pink?" Because now you're taking a full risk of getting sick.
Like, you gotta find a disclosure.
Yep.
Wanted about once.
So, but when you talk about like a brisket or a steak, the inside of that steak has never touched air. Okay, and the outsides of it that are now been kissed by heat, everything has been cooked off. All the bacteria has been cooked off. Not to gross anybody out, but this is a barbecue class. So we talked about chicken thighs. So we were talking about seasonings. All right. I don't have a crap ton of time to make my own seasonings. At some point, yes, I'm going to. I have a recipe book to make seasonings. I am not afraid to use store-bought seasonings. This is the one company that I am a product ambassador of, is Texas Pepper Jelly. But it's because I absolutely love their products. Everything that I cook with has Texas Pepper Jelly in it. The pork butt in the back has we call it blended honey, so it's a sweeter seasoning. When you're doing pork or chicken, mostly pork, you're going to want less of a bite on your pork. You're going to want something more savory, well, not savory. Can't get the word out of my mouth, but you want a little bit on the sweeter side for pork, because pork can be a very unforgiving taste. Not all pork comes out great. So you do need to use some seasonings on it, but I always use the sweeter seasonings on pork. This is the brisket seasoning. There's salt, pepper, paprika, garlic salt. But don't be afraid to buy store-bought stuff. Please do. Because trying to perfect your own seasonings and rubs. I don't know. Do you make your own rubs?
For now, but yeah, good for.
Yeah.
Farmer's market guy sells.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this Texas Pepper Jelly was started by a guy named Craig Sherry, who is a competition cook. Okay. He's a competition cook, started making his own seasonings, turned it into Craig's, which is still the name of his barbecue sauce, which is fantastic. And then he created the Texas Pepper Jelly with all his seasonings. So I am an ambassador for him, because I love the product. I love the company. I love who Craig is and what he does. And the flavor is just, even the wife has been addicted to the APS seasoning. It's salt, pepper, and garlic. So
if you're doing a pork shoulder, a brisket, or a ribs or chicken, how soon would you put the seasoning on before you actually put the meat on?
so let's say with pork or chicken, I will season it and let it rest for quite some time. Like last night, when I did the pork butt, I seasoned it.
Let it go all night?
What's that?
You put the seasoning on the night before?
Sometimes I will. It's almost like a marinade. Because what happens is when you season something, okay, the salts in that seasoning are drawing the moisture out of the meat, and then what happens is all that gets put right back in. You start putting it on the grill, it all starts to get absorbed back into the meat. So with the pork butt, last night I think I let it rest for was it probably more than that, probably 6 hours. I seasoned it. I injected it with apple cider first, and then I seasoned it with the rub, and I put it in the refrigerator, let it rest until I was ready to cook it at 2 o'clock in the morning. Steak, I'll let the rub adhere to the steak before I throw it on the grill, because I don't want to lose the seasoning. Ribs,
I'm sorry,
No.
what kind of steak though?
I like New York strip. New York strip is my favorite cut of steak.
Yeah.
Um,
Not a lot of fat.
That's all right. I'm not in it for the fat. I'm in it for the flavor. Because if you buy the right style of New York strip that's marbled well, has a lot of internal fat in it, it's going to be
Yeah.
just as juicy as a ribeye. And again, it's all about how you cook it. You can take, and I've done it before, I can take a cheap piece of steak and make it taste better than a filet mignon from a top end restaurant. It's all in how you cook it.
All right.
So,
That is cool.
so again, salt first, like I said, it helps penetrate, pull the moisture out of whatever it is that you're utilizing. And then that seasoning gets right back into the meat. Binder is optional. So you'll see a lot of people go, mustard is a binder. You don't taste the mustard. So a lot of people, you'll see videos where people are rubbing down their pork with a mustard and then putting the seasoning on. All they're doing is giving the seasoning something to adhere to stick to the meat. I used to use the binders all the time, but I find that my meat is just as flavorful with or without the binder. So the only time I really use the binder, like I said earlier, is with chicken. I'll rub it down with some olive oil or duck fat and then season it up.
Can I ask what type of mustard?
Yellow.
Oh,
Yeah, just yellow, because if you're using a ground mustard, then you're getting,
okay, nothing exotic.
no, nothing like that. No Grey Poupon or anything like that. That's your new one.
Sorry.
No, you're good. And again, don't rush the rest. Make sure you let your meats rest for that full, juicy, flavorful bite. Use temperature, like I said earlier, not guesswork. Don't cook to time. Always probe your meat so you know exactly, especially with chicken. Okay, because you don't want to eat chicken that's below 165 degrees. That's when you get that pink chicken. Funny note though, if you're smoking a chicken, you're going to get pink, right? If you smoke chicken, you go to bite into that piece of chicken after you smoked it, even though you checked your internal temperature to 165, you're going to bite into it, you're going to see pink and you're going to freak out. All that is the smoke. That's the smoke ring. So.
I hate to jump in, but the government advisory is for pork. We don't have to cook pork to the temperature they
No,
want.
and it's
Say 20 years.
yeah. So you can cook pork like you would a steak. Your rare pork is going to be about 15 degrees warmer than your steak medium would be. So or
It
rare.
doesn't have to be 107.
It does not have to be, no.
Oh,
No.
thank you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Find your methods. Okay. Start with your cooks, start easy, start simple. Document what you do. Get yourself a book off of Amazon. Document your cooks, how you cooked it, so that when you want to cook something again, you can quickly go back into your book and go, oh, this is how I did my pork butt last time, or this is how I did my ribs last time. And you're taking the guesswork out of it. And the more repetition you get, the better off you're going to be. I can cook a pork butt in my sleep. I can do ribs in my sleep. I can do just about anything in my sleep. I've done it so many times.
Well, pork, what would you cook the pork butt to?
203 degrees. 203 to 205 is what I get my pork butt up to, internal, to get that nice pull. Yep. So, keep the fire steady. Always make sure that you have enough fuel. A good rule of thumb if you're cooking on a stick burner is keep your next logs either on top of the grill or on your firebox or right below your firebox, so they stay somewhat warm. So when you're ready to put them into the firebox, it does not take that long for them to ignite, and they'll in turn won't smoke up as fast. Give it that way to smoke. So that's it for the presentation. Thank you. So just a couple of quick things that I have up here. Butcher paper is awesome. If you can't find the disposable cutting boards, you can always put this down on top of your surface, double it up, triple it up, and you wrap your meats in that. This is a boning knife. This is awesome for trimming any of your meats. It's flexible. They're very sharp. You always make sure you have a sharp knife anytime you're doing any type of trimming or cutting. Go out and splurge. Buy yourselves a nice, chef's knife, something nice and sharp, something you're going to be using all the time. Talked about temperature probes. This is what we call a meter. Okay, I can plug this into my meat, hook it up to my phone, and I can watch the temperatures from my phone. I don't have to sit next to my meat the whole time. I can just monitor it all from my phone. This is called a meter, MEATER. There's a whole bunch of them on the market now. There's a Chef IQ that's really good. ThermoPro makes one now. There's so many companies out there that make them, but I find the meter and the Chef IQ to be the two best ones on the market. Tongs. If you're not clicking twice, are you really barbecuing, right? So, any questions? Any questions for me? Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
Here's. Front garden, get a little. Shape. Boil it, burn it, parboil it a little bit, and then put it on the grill,
To each their own.
Okay.
It's not something that I would personally do. I like all of my meats to be kissed by the fuel that I'm using for the majority of the cook. But I have seen people do that. I don't think it's necessary. And you're changing the complexity of the meat you're doing too. So, all right. Crocodile cloth. Yep. Who has a smoker at home? You guys use wood chunks? Take these. We will have pulled pork in the back as soon as I'm done here. So no questions, no further questions. I appreciate you guys all coming out. I really do. Mark, I appreciate your questions. Thank you very much for interacting with me. Thank you to the Bethel Public Library for allowing me to do this today. I appreciate that. And everybody enjoy. Have a great night.